Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series, Season 4, Episode 13, Family Ties. This originally came out May 4th, 1996, and it was originally the Season 4 finale, but now in the new Disney Plus order, they put it as Episode 13. What's wild about this episode is we've only seen Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in little cameos in the show before until this episode, and it's really centered on them. It almost doesn't feel like an X-Men episode. It feels like what we would have gotten if you had a whole animated show about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. So in that sense, it's really, really cool. And it's also cool watching this episode now and how many characters we know and love from the MCU are in this episode that have more significance just to the DNA of Marvel, like High Evolutionary, who got a lot of exposure through Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and of course Scarlet Witch blew up from WandaVision. But what's cool about this episode is you get the story and the tie to Magneto as their father, and that hasn't really been explored in live action yet, so it's cool to see it in animation. And I also want to point out how it sets up a lot of cool things they could do in X-Men 97. So what happens is the episode, they are notified that their father is dying in southern Romania, and he tells them now on his deathbed that he's not their real father and their mother's not their real mother. This leads to him telling the story of the midwife Bova. Some of the animation, the vibe of the story kind of feels like a Bible story. But what I really like how they handled this story is that Magneto didn't know he was the father as well. I thought that made it way more interesting and less generic. But on Magneto's side of it, he shows up to Charles and he thinks his wife Magda may be alive from this note. Now, this was a plant from High Evolutionary. And it's interesting that he got so lucky, High Evolutionary, that when he was planning to attack Magneto, that it happened to be the day that WandaVision and Quicksilver show up to his door looking for Bova. It's also strange to see Quicksilver carrying Wanda up the Wundagore mountain because we're just so used to in the MCU her flying a lot, but it is a little more true to the comics with her not flying here. Now, when they run into High Evolutionary, he recognizes the twins, and he confirms who they are through their DNA, and he's also going to use this DNA, and his master plan now is to have Magneto's DNA be the final piece to ignite their DNA bonded with the twins. It's the father giving life to the children here. Now, when they see Bova, she gives them the real story of what happened about their real mother, who was pregnant at the time and brought away from a mutant who we know as Magneto, who terrorized a village nearby. And after giving birth, she never survived, giving birth to the twins. So they hear of Magneto's name here, but they don't connect that it is their father. They just know him as this mutant who was terrorizing people and drove away their mother. So they want revenge on this mystery man Magneto. So it cuts to Magneto visiting the grave of his wife where he's supposed to meet, thinking she's gonna magically be there, and a knight of Wundagore is just posing as her in this robe and then reveals itself as this creature. So they fool Magneto, but now it's Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver who are going to take him on. Wanda's like, we are here to get revenge for one who has fallen in your path. And I love Magneto's like, you need to be more specific. There have been many. And I love he always points when he says stuff like that. Now the Knights of Wundagore show up, and Wolverine has a great line where he's like, you ought to see it, Hank. It's the blasted island of Dr. Moreau. And it's great he's saying to someone like Hank who would totally get that reference. But then the twist is they turn on Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, the Knights, and this is where Wolverine will get into battle to defend Magneto, which he really doesn't want to do at the end of the day. But I love that it's Wolverine knocking one of the Knights into Magda's grave. That gives Magneto enough rage to break out of his bonds. Now they all get gassed here. And I love when they're all stuck in the jelly. Magneto wakes up and Wolverine goes, well, it's about time. Maybe now you can tell me what this circus is all about. Meaning that he was waiting, awake, just watching Magneto, waiting for him to wake up, not saying anything. I thought that was hysterical, thinking about that. Now you learn more about High Evolutionary here as he explains it to Magneto that he has this colony of advanced creatures, and he's ready to use the twins' DNA and Magneto's DNA as a final piece, the key to bond their DNA and give life. And he has this great line where he says, for it is the blood of the Father that gives life to that of his children. And we get the Darth Vader type moment where they learn that Magneto's their real father, and Magneto's also learning that they're his real children. And Magneto confesses to his children how he frightened their mom, and his anger to make things right with them is what breaks him out now, this time, of the jelly. While this is happening, this new DNA code is being used on Wolverine, and it makes him a full-on werewolf. And I also love in the big battle that this full-on werewolf Wolverine just picks up Professor X at one point and throws him in his chair. And I love all the cool moments of how Quicksilver, especially in the fighting scenes, especially how much they show him using his spinning and moving so fast. I thought it looked really cool animation-wise. That's why I'd love to see Quicksilver a lot in X-Men 97. What's also really funny to me is when the High Evolutionary comes to bring back some of his knights after they've lost this battle. I love he sucks them up and none of them are moving. Like the animations are just standing still like statues waiting for him to pick them up. I thought that was so funny visually. And Wolverine has the best line of the episode. When he turns back into himself, Beast is on top of him and he says, "I know you're going to have a good explanation for this, Hank, but right now, how about giving me some air?" And it's cool. And Beast says, talking about all this, fascinating. A world created, sustained, and lost by a single man. I really think it's cool how they did High Evolutionary here, even better than Guardians of the Galaxy 3, just really showing you how powerful this man is, and his ideas are very interesting. Now, the strength of the episode comes in this final moment with Magneto talking to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. He says, "Perhaps in time we can get to know one another." And Quicksilver goes, "After what you did to our mother," and he says, "I have no excuses. Losing Magda is the greatest regret of my life." These kind of lines make me think that we know in X-Men 97 Magneto is going to be leading the group. He's going to be a big part of it, which makes me excited because really the best episodes of the show so far to me have always had Magneto in them. And it sets up a storyline here. We just got a little bit of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the show altogether. And that with X-Men 97, we could totally see him reuniting with them. There's an open door there to see. They can have a working relationship where by the end of it, they forgive him or at least appreciate him more. I think that'd be really great. And he says, "As for the two of you, I swear I would have come for you if I knew you were alive." And Scarlet Witch says, "We'll never know, will we?" I really like the writing of that too, that they didn't just like bend over for him once he apologized. And I love when Beast gives a comforting poetic quote to Magneto and Magneto literally doesn't even acknowledge it. And he says, "I lost her twice now. None of you will never know," talking about Magda. And Charles just goes, "Goodbye, my friend." So it's a sad ending. It's a strong ending and some of the best writing in the show in that talking with Magneto and Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. It really landed well, the episode. And I thought it had a really good pace to it. And I like they really gave a really great story about these two twins with Magneto and how they found out he was their father and scared their mother away. And I really like having time with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and they didn't just tease them here. They committed to them for a full episode, which was really cool. So this is a really good episode to me. I'm going to give it a 9.1. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button on YouTube and follow along on TikTok if you're on TikTok, and I'll see you next time.